Lesson 6.4 is about rewriting a pair of fractions so they have a common denominator. Let's think about the fractions 1/3 and 1/4. 1/3 and 1/4 have different denominators. Right now we cannot add or subtract these fractions because thirds and fourths are different things. We need to rewrite them so they have a common denominator, and then we can do something like add or subtract them. Think about this. If you were trying to add 3 apples plus 4 oranges, you can't do that. You can't say you have 7 apples or that you have 7 oranges. You have to rewrite your answer so that it has a common label that works for both items in your problem. Fractions are the same way. Let's come back to our fractions 1/3 and 1/4. We want to rewrite these fractions so they have a common denominator. Our first step is to list the common multiples of both denominators. So we'll list the common multiples of 3 and 4. Let's start by listing the multiples of 3. These would be numbers you say when you count by 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, and so on. Next, we'll list the multiples of 4, or numbers you say when you count by 4. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, and so on. Next, we look to see which numbers are in both lists. 12 is a common multiple of both 3 and 4. 24 is also a common multiple of both 3 and 4. We could use 12 or 24 as a common denominator for 1/3 and 1/4. Most people prefer to use the least common multiple, or the smallest number that's in both lists. In this case, the least common multiple between 3 and 4 is 12. It's a multiple of both numbers, and it's the smallest multiple. Our next step is going to be to rewrite 1/3 and 1/4 as fractions with denominators of 12. We want to find out how many 12ths are equal to 1/3 and how many 12ths are equal to 1/4. We're going to do this by multiplying both fractions by fractions that are equal to 1. Think about this. 3 times what is 12? 3 times 4 is 12. If we multiply the denominator by 4, we must also multiply the numerator by 4. This way, when we multiply 1/3 times 4/4, what we're really doing is multiplying 1/3 times a fraction equal to 1. So we're not changing the value of 1/3. 3 times 4 is 12. 1 times 4 is 4. So 1/3 is equal to 4/12. We'll do the same thing for 1/4. Think. 4 times what number is 12? 4 times 3 is 12. If we multiply the denominator by 3, we must also multiply the numerator by 3. Again, this way we're multiplying 1/4 by a fraction equal to 1, so we're not changing the value of 1/4. 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 3 is 3. So 1/4 is equal to 3/12. If you were to rewrite 1/3 and 1/4 as fractions with a common denominator, your answer would be 4/12 and 3/12. Let's look at a second example. 3/4 and 1/6. I want to rewrite these fractions so that they have common denominators. First, we'll list the multiples of 4 and the multiples of 6. Multiples of 4 are 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, and so on. Multiples of 6 are 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, and so on. Common multiples of 4 and 6 include 12 and 24. We could use either 12 or 24 as a common denominator, but again, most people prefer to use the smallest number or the least common multiple as their denominator. So we will use 12 as our common denominator. It's the smallest number that's in both lists of multiples. So we're going to rewrite 3/4 and 1/6 as fractions with a denominator of 12. We want to figure out how many 12ths 3/4 is equal to, and how many 12ths 1/6 is equal to. Think, 4 times what is 12? 4 times 3 is 12. If we multiply the denominator by 3, we must also multiply the numerator by 3. 3/3 is equal to 1, so we're just multiplying by a fraction equal to 1. 4 times 3 is 12, 3 times 3 is 9, so 3/4 is equal to 9/12. Think, 6 times what is 12? 6 times 2 is 12. If we multiply the denominator by 2, we also have to multiply the numerator by 2. Again, multiplying by a fraction equal to 1. 6 times 2 is 12. 1 times 2 is 2, so 1/6 is equal to 2/12. If you were to rewrite the fractions 3/4 and 1/6 as having common denominators, your answer would be 9/12 and 2/12.